Well, welcome to Beyond BattleCreek. Today I'm joined with Andrew Barron. Welcome to the pod, man.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Man, listen, there's not many people that have seen your face. If you're watching this podcast or the show, like, this is Andrew Barron, but he is behind so many things that you do see here at our church. So Andrew, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the creative director here at BattleCreek. I've been on staff for just over 6 years, and our team gets to do all the videos, the graphics, the print materials, the handouts, website, marketing, billboards, radio ads, anything that has a design or a logo or hopefully looks good. Like, that's what our team gets to be part of.
They may know your wife works here as well.
Yeah, my wife, Alyssa, or AJ, she's the 4th and 5th grade minister here at the Broken Arrow campus.
She's also on like welcome videos and like she does a lot.
She does a lot. She's very talented. Yes. I think I was on staff first, but she's the favorite A Barron that's on staff. But
that's up for debate, I would say. It's up for debate. We love her too, but and at home you guys got 2 little furry babies.
Yeah, we've got Tinley and Knox. Those are our puppers, and one is scared of the floor, and the other would run to every person and love to meet them. So
I love it. I love it, man. So before we get to all things creative, listen, there's some moments in time where God like illuminates how amazing his plan is and how he has worked across the whole world. And the large world became small when you and I realized something really unique. When I first started working here a couple of years ago, you're a big Mississippi State fan.
Yes.
I mean, if you know Andrew, you know he is Hail State all the way.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
More cowbell.
And so I said, hey, we're Mississippi State. Is that, how's that? And he said, I went to school there. And I said, well, I used to live in Tupelo. And so everybody was Mississippi State. He was like, well, listen, I lived in Corinth, Mississippi. Now, listen, if you know anything about, you probably don't if you're listening from Oklahoma.
Don't.
Corinth is like the northeast corner. Like, there's not a whole lot in Corinth, actually.
Oh, there's the railroads and the drugstore.
Yeah, we stop at that Sonic sometimes going to my parents' house.
And
right
Slug
there.
Burgers.
Oh, I'm not, but you can.
Okay.
But anyway, we were talking about Corinth. I said, I lived in Tupelo, and you said, what's Corinth? I said, but then I moved to Jackson, Tennessee. And you said, that's funny. We lived in Jackson, Tennessee. I was like, well, when did you live in Jackson? And we lived in Jackson, Tennessee, in West Tennessee at the exact same time. And you told me that your dad was a pastor of a church, of Calvary Baptist Church. And I said, Andrew, this was wild. We visited Calvary Baptist Church several times to see if it was going to be our church. And so
small world, man.
I'm a little older than you. So Jeff, as a 9th grade boy in high school, and little toddler Andrew probably running around, we're in the exact same place at the exact same time.
Yeah. And here we are
Mind
today.
blown. Look at how in the world, right?
Yep.
So there's not many people I can look back and say, man, I know your dad. Like, I met him. And but your dad was a pastor for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
he was a worship pastor that was his whole career up until, probably about 5-6 years ago. And that was my whole upbringing. I was in the church 9 months before I was born. And it's funny, I think because of how much I was in the church, I love God and I love Jesus. I was saved at a young age, but because of what I saw from the behind the curtain, I was like, no, I'll never work for a church. And then here I am.
Look what God does when we say we're never going to do something.
Yes. Yeah, never say that.
I'm never going to win the lottery. I love it. Hey, so, I mean, listen, you were a pastor's kid, and now you're in a creative pastoral role here. Yeah. Like, how did you get from Mississippi to Oklahoma?
Yeah, so, like I said, my dad, was in ministry his, all of his working years, and we moved around a lot. Like you said, lived in Corinth and New Albany and Horn Lake and Jackson. And when I was a freshman in college or in high school, we moved out here to Sand Springs, and that's where I graduated high school and went back to Mississippi State to get back in the South. I don't know if you know this, but when I moved here, no one had sweet tea, not even McDonald's.
It's a sad
Cracker Barrel. There was one Cracker Barrel, and it was the only place that had sweet tea. But
it's amazing to me how many people drink unsweet tea in Oklahoma.
It's ridiculous.
They serve it, and I'm like, why would you serve this nasty? But if those of you like unsweet tea, you can be weird, okay? Yeah. It's totally fine.
Yeah, this is the perfect place for imperfect people. So I met Alyssa at Mississippi State and was doing mechanical engineering and realized that was not my calling. Partially because I was bored and didn't go to class. So that kind of motivated me to lose my out-of-state tuition waiver.
Sure.
So I came back to Oklahoma State and did graphic design. I actually kind of changed my major at Mississippi State. Came back to Oklahoma State and loved their motion design program. And so Alyssa and I were doing the long distance thing and trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to live? And again, as things seemed to go, Alyssa said, yeah, anywhere but Tulsa is great with me. So I was living in Tulsa, commuting to Stillwater, working at a photography company here, and interviewing kind of all over the country, Cincinnati, Seattle, Nashville, Memphis, and the best offer we got for my graphic design major was at an ad agency here in Tulsa. And so we brought all of our wedding gifts from our wedding shower that we had in Tulsa that we took to Memphis because we thought we won't live in Tulsa. Brought all those back, and so we newlyweds. We're in Tulsa. I have a job in an agency, and we decided, okay, well, we need to find a church. I didn't want to go to the same church. I'd been at the same church for 10 years, but it's all my group of friends, my youth group, and Alyssa didn't have anybody.
Sure.
And not that she couldn't find somebody, but we wanted to find our own church together.
Yeah, start fresh, for sure.
So the very first church we went to together as a newlywed couple was Midtown.
BattleCreek Midtown.
And we loved it. Chris Hislop was there to welcome us, to give us a big hug.
Love Chris.
And it was great. We loved it. And the next Sunday was like, okay, well, let's go down the list. Let's look at number 2. Let's go visit them. So we went to another Midtown church, and we were there for about 10 minutes in the lobby waiting on service, and not a single person had talked to us. And their services were at a little different time. So I looked at my watch like, we got time to make it to Midtown for the 11. And so we went back, and I remember Chris was like, 2 weeks in a row, like, that's a good sign, right? And we're like, yeah, like, one, he remembered us. He probably didn't remember our names or anything, but he knew, like, hey, they're newlyweds. They came for the first time last week. They're here again this week. And so we never tried any more churches, and we started volunteering in the production. And I saw a motion graphic bumper for one of the sermon series. So I asked, like, hey, is that something you guys contract out or what? And they said, well, we're looking for somebody full time. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm going to be here for a year. We're going to move to Tennessee. But while I'm here, I'd love to help out, but I won't work for a church. And so I started interviewing for what I thought was some contract or freelance work, and kept having doors open. I told Alyssa one night, I was like, I think God wants me to take this job, like at a church in Tulsa, after saying we didn't want to live in Tulsa.
Sure.
And I didn't want to work for a church. And so I accepted a full-time role. And at the time, it was just me and Daniel Loveland were the only creatives for, I think we had 3 campuses at the time. And I thought, man, they're not going to have enough work. Like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm going to be making bulletins on like the pink paper and using clip art. And boy, was I wrong. There was lots of opportunities for, not just for work, but for speaking into creativity and artwork as a mission and as a ministry to help. And it really changed my perspective of like, oh dang, like this is what I'm called to. With mechanical engineering, you're problem solving, you're figuring out the puzzle pieces. We're creating the pieces and fitting them together so that the puzzle helps you do something. So that's
good.
It's been like a full circle, but like I said, I've been on staff for over 6 years. Alyssa's been on staff for probably close to 5. And we're in our second house here in Tulsa. So we're here now. Like, we love it. We got our group of people, and we love Tulsa and love BattleCreek. So
that's awesome, man. So you mentioned a second ago you are the creative director of our campus. What are some of the things that what do they need to know about the creative department? What are some of the things that they see that you want them to know that is attributed to the people that get to work beside you?
Yeah. So one of the things they tell you in art school is like, every artist wants to change the world with a poster or something. And it's kind of a joke, but we can. Like, we have a message that can change the world. And so I think as you're seeing, whether it's invites to kids camp, or it's a handout for a sermon series, or it's invites to church, or it's a video of Alex on social media about the next series, like, we want to make sure that everything we do has a purpose, and it's helping helping visually communicate the gospel in some way, whether it's setting up you at Midtown or setting up student pastors for their event. We want to make sure that we're removing any hindrance that the enemy could use of like, even if it's something as simple as, well, I can't read that billboard. Well, that's a legibility issue. We love fonts. We're nerdy about that.
Right.
We want to remove any hindrance that someone might have to come to church or to come to an event or even just to remember something and take it back home with them.
Yeah.
So anything that we can make visually memorable and portable so they can take it home and apply it to their life, like that's a win for us.
That's good. Somebody asked me, like, what does the creative department do all day? And I was like, what do they not do? From parking lot to pew, right?
Yeah,
we don't
absolutely.
have pews anymore, but you know what I mean? Like from signage on the buildings.
The QR codes on the back of the chairs.
The QR codes. I'm talking, it's everything that says BattleCreek came through this place. Lyric videos a lot of times will come through there. You've got all the videos in worship. You've got web. You've got social media. You've got pictures. You've got banners. You've got
shirts, mugs.
Oh my goodness!
All the merch.
The store. Shout out to the BattleCreek store.
Yeah, the vest.
The vest. That's right. I mean, there's so many things that people would not say, oh, that came out of the creative department, because it just is accepted that it just happened.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people will say good design is invisible because that means it's working.
Yeah.
So you probably don't think about it unless you're actually looking for everything that, oh yeah, someone had to print that. Someone had to design these blanks so that you can fill them out correctly.
I tell you, probably one of the best compliments I can give you is that we have great gear at the church. We're trying just, give people good stuff to wear,
absolutely.
Positive message, BattleCreek Church. And we've branded the gear a little bit. Like there's little tags in places that have
even like on t-shirts.
I love it. Yeah. It's like this little sneaky, like little brand placement.
Yeah.
Well, my 2-year-old looks at that logo and says, church.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so my little Andrew, my little guy, he recognizes that's the symbol of the church. And
that's so cool.
If it's good enough for a 2-year-old,
there you go.
Hopefully it should be good enough for other people that recognizes BattleCreek, unless you're following somebody who's like speeding or being a jerk in their car and they have the logo. They go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they probably don't go to Midtown. It's funny.
Sure.
We did the rebrand in house a couple of years ago. Which, if you don't know, we were the church.at.
Right.
And all of our name and equity with the community was under BattleCreek. We'd hear people say, like, I go to BattleCreek. I go to the Midtown campus. Like I said that for years. And so we did the rebrand. But one of the requests was it needs to be simple enough that we can draw it in chalk at student camp on the concrete. It's like, fascinating. But it's funny. Like that's what we wanted, was an icon or something that's unique, has some symbolism and some meaning to it, but can be easily recognizable as a brand.
Yeah.
So that's super cool, man.
There's a lot of things that I've looked back. I've been super proud of that you guys have done. But that is one thing that in the short amount of time, with all the major things that had to change with that, and really the whole, it didn't change the mission of the church. It was just the name of the church.
Yeah.
We did it in such a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And it was so effective. So great job to your team on that.
Thank
some people are just jumping in and only know it as BattleCreek Church.
But some people always thought that was the name, which I think
that's fair.
If you hear people say, wasn't that the name the whole time, then you made the right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about working at an ad agency, and we've been talking about creativity and content, but I think it's really good. I like to think about it just as art. Right.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of creativity in the church, and somebody say, "Oh, well, that thing was creative." Well, there's a lot of things that's creative that makes an impact in a statement, and it really is a piece of art. As you guys think about all the art that you're curating here, like what is different from creating art for a church versus an agency?
Yeah. So I think there's nothing wrong with working for an agency. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't even looking for a church job, and it is cool. It's fun. You're working on different projects. There's a lot of variety. I got to travel a bunch. We did a bunch of destination marketing. So on one hand, like nothing's different. Like you got fast deadlines. You are hustling. You're trying to get all this stuff. There's variety. I think the biggest difference is I'm not trying to sell oil pipeline fittings and make them, look super cool and have great photography. I'm trying to align my primary calling as a Christian and spreading the gospel into my secondary calling of my career.
Yeah.
And when those merge and meet up, it's pretty cool. So instead of selling someone, hey, visit McCurtain County. That was one of the projects we worked on at the ad agency. Hey, come to BattleCreek Church where you can know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make a difference.
Yeah.
And our team can help make it welcoming. A lot of people's first impression of a church or a business, like it's going to be their social media, their website. And if we can help capture what is actually happening here and show that, again, it's removing that, like, oh, like I could fit in there. Like I could go visit that. It's removing any of those roadblocks for people. So we have a better product that we're advertising. So it's very similar to an ad agency. A lot of times we have creative differences. We have different ideas. There's fast turnaround, but at the end of the day, we have the best product in the world, and that's Jesus Christ and the salvation that comes with that. And so
it's good
being able to market that in a way that's helpful.
Yeah.
That's where the win is.
That's amazing. I think you can look back and see this, how God has been shaping you for this role since you were little, right? Yeah. Your love of art and then all these things. And so, but you've been in church for a long time as well. And how have you seen art in church evolve since you were young?
Yeah, I think a lot of churches maybe didn't have the money or maybe didn't put the value in it, or they were more concerned with what color blue the carpet should be and having the committee meetings to vote on it. But I've heard people say, God cares more about your soul than what our sign looks like. It's like, well, yeah, but people care about what your sign looks like.
Yeah.
And we're in such a content devouring culture now where that is important. And we're not competing with other churches. We're not competing we're competing against Nike and Netflix and anything people can scroll through on their phone. Like, that's our competition. And our quality, the Bible says, do it as if unto the Lord. So if I'm going to make something, and this is my act of worship, is making this, I'm going to make it as if it's unto the Lord, but it's also got to be good so that's functional to get someone in the door to hear about Jesus or give them a tool to help reach someone else for Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think the church is coming around to seeing the importance of that. I think COVID really forced that onto some churches. But yeah, like if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. That's always been something we've talked about. And I think churches are seeing that they need that.
Yeah.
And most people don't care about what fonts are being used, but when they see it done well, they know.
Yeah.
And so that's where we come in, like, hey, this is great idea. We're going to make it palatable for the normal person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Listen, everything has a message, right?
Yeah.
Like everything that you do. And so crisp and clean and clear are such major things that you don't attribute to things unless they're not crisp.
Unless they're wrong.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was we just had Easter, and I was driving from Tulsa out to Broken Arrow for a meeting, and billboards catch my eyes, and there's a billboard that looked up and it just said Easter, and I thought, wow, that billboard is amazing. Like, look at the use of colors, and there's some really neat font in there that caught my eye that I was like, that's very interesting. And so I'm just enjoying at just the art part of it, right? Then at the bottom of the billboard it said BattleCreek Easter.com. Yeah. And I was like, what? That's us. Yeah. That's my church. I'm so excited. I was so proud of us because I hadn't seen that package yet. Right. It was just unrolling in the community. And so, again, it caught my eye. It was clean. It had a purpose. BattleCreek Easter. And we had a great Easter season at all of our campuses. And so attributed to a lot of things. Invest and Invite, a company with great marketing. And so good job to your team for helping do that. So
thank you. We have a fantastic team.
Yeah. Speaking of your team, how many people work in the creative department?
Yeah, we've got 8 or 9 full-time. We've got a couple interns. We have people who focus on motion graphics and video editing and photography, the graphic design, art director, video director. Everyone has like a unique specialty that they can do, but it's really cool that everyone can help with everybody's projects. Like if we had the Momentum series a couple years ago, and I think like our whole team was on set for that shoot. Everybody was either grip or lighting or doing something, but everyone was involved, even though everyone isn't technically on the video team.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, all hands on deck, and everybody is so talented that anybody can step in like, oh yeah, I can help with that.
Yeah.
Like they're all fantastic artists in all that they do, and attention to detail is out the window, sometimes to a fault with me. Like I want it to be absolutely perfect.
But a bunch of multi-tools running around, a bunch of Leathermen, yeah. And women. We got several.
Yeah,
a lot of great women and men on our staff. They're awesome. And what I love about the team is that they don't, if something great is celebrated, like they're not just a person's going to raise their hand and say that was me. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, look what we did. Yes. Look at what our team did. And, it's been really cool.
It's really cool when I didn't expect this because I was a graphic designer. Now I'm a manager of other designers. But when something gets celebrated, usually that feedback comes to me. And it's really exciting. But Sarah Wilson made that, or Chavi made that. Seth Piper colored that, and it was fixed the color grade on that, and it's really cool to celebrate that. One of the things I'm learning is, okay, now I got to bring that to them. Like, hey, this story, we did at Easter with Frank. I heard 15 people with a personal connection today. Like, thank you, Daniel Loveland, for putting that together.
Yeah. That's great. You've got if you've never been to the Broken Arrow campus, there's different tribes and communities that meet in office together. In different parts of the building. And the creative tribe is over here on the what is it called? This
we're in the south
side of the building. And just a fun group of people. They're a lot of fun. They're boisterous and very, very smart and creative and talented. But I was thinking about your team as we were walking in here today. How do you keep them motivated and challenged and encouraged that what they do isn't just for a product, but what they do matters more than that?
Yeah, I think just to be honest, this is one of the areas that I'm still growing in as I'm not just a manager, but as a leader of creatives in the church. I think even just for me personally, it's very easy just to, especially when things are busy or if I'm in a season of unhealth, of like, here's my to-do list, I got to get it done, versus, hey, what's God trying to do in this or through this? I think just like you would pray and prepare for a message that you're going to teach, like as we approach seasons or sermon series, like I want to have that same attitude of like, I have an idea of what I think would work and I have schooling that backs that up. But also I can hear from the Holy Spirit of, hey, this is kind of the feel it needs to be. And it's very easy to miss that. Not to say that we're not talented and couldn't figure something out, but I think when you have that anointing, almost like that blessing and that clarity, it's going to be so much better. I think you see it with worship pastors. Like you can tell, like, oh yeah, there's something special.
Sure.
So I think for me, it's a challenge, and it's an everyday reminder of like refocusing everything. And so I think as I'm learning how to do that with leading a team, sometimes if let's say we have a project that maybe we're frustrated with, or we can't get it quite the way we like it, like sometimes it's just good to remind us, like, hey, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Or celebrating past wins. Like, hey, last time we did something like this billboard, did you know that Jeff had a couple come to Midtown that saw the billboard and that was like their first time there? This was, I think, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But you shared that with me and I was able to pass that on. It's like, okay, like we're not happy with the way the billboard art looks. Let's take it back, refocus, because there's going to be a couple that sees it and they're going to go visit Midtown for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. It's not always the default. I think some of that's our own personal walk with Christ. Like the healthier we are in different seasons, everybody goes through different seasons, the easier it is to like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for Jesus. But sometimes it's not easy and it's not the default. And what our goal is, this is our act of worship. So we want it to be perfect, and it can be perfect. And then maybe that messes up someone else's act of worship. So I think of the production guys. So if my act of worship is, hey, we're going to make this and it's going to be awesome, it's going to be flawless, and I give it to the production guys on Saturday night at midnight, well, their act of worship of creating a, distraction-free worship environment where tech plays flawlessly and the sound is good, like I'm not setting them up well. And so it's the domino effect. And so that's part of my act of worship and leading our team of like, okay, this is our act of worship, but we're doing it for a bigger purpose, and it's not just us that's affected.
That's good.
So it's kind of like the twofold of why we're doing what we're doing and who else it's going to affect.
Yeah. I was thinking about, we're at a church that values excellent, visual worship. Everything that we do here is just, it seems like it just comes out excellent. And as I look across the landscape of churches, like we're doing awesome and we do wonderful, wonderful work. But as the leader of the department, how do you balance the ministry side of what you do for the gospel with quality?
Yeah, that is a great question. It seems that ministry timelines and ideas don't always align with our expectations of what a timeline should be. And you can get something that's good, something that's fast, or something that's cheap, and you can pick two of those things. You can't get all three. Good. And so sometimes we're approached with a project that's probably an unrealistic deadline, but we know that like that's your ministry. That's going to be the most important thing to you. So we've got to come back with a solution and sometimes it's not even a solution that we can necessarily help with, but hey, here's some resources that we think you could use.
Right.
Or maybe here's a scaled down version that we can help with. Or, hey, if you save this and used it in August, we could even expound upon it and make it even better. The challenge is everyone's ministry is their most important thing to them. And so we do have to say no, for the sake of our sanity and not working 80 hours a week. But being able to ask the question like, hey, what problem are we trying to solve?
Right.
And if they can give us a good, hey, this is the problem, we can typically help them problem solve into a solution that works on their timeline or on their budget. It's probably not the first thing that they brought to us hey, we got this idea for this. That's an awesome idea. We would love to do that maybe in the future. For now, this is probably what we can help with. And a lot of that's dependent on our relational equity with the other teams. And so that it's not like, hey, you're not your idea. We're not shooting you down. This isn't bad on you. We have 2 weeks. So we probably can't shoot a feature-length film.
Sure.
But just reminding them like, hey, we're here to partner with you. We're helping problem solve. And whether it's our solution or our execution or not, just making sure that we're helping them like with their ministry.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So there's a lot of good ideas that are still on the table that we haven't been able to do yet.
We call that the parking lot. We'll put that in the parking lot
right.
for now.
That's good. But then there's been some ideas that you've done and they've turned out awesome. If you look back at the projects that you've done, what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
Yeah, so I think several of the sermon series packages that we've put together, our team has put together, have been really good at communicating not only what Alex is going to say, but it sets him up because it kind of subliminally maybe like, oh, like I see that now and I understand that. And that helps me remember, like if somebody says, hey, what'd you talk about at church? Like, oh yeah, like I remember that because I can visually see it and hear Alex talking about it. One of those was the Reputation series we did a couple years ago. And that was just like a two-man job. It was Sarah Wilson and Seth Piper, but we had the little model of the church. And this is another time where someone brought us a problem and we solved it with a completely different out-of-the-box solution. But we wanted to represent how the church has kind of gotten a bad rap for being known of what we're against instead of what we're for. And so to represent that, we had this little model of a white church, little steeple, and we poured black paint, and it kind of slow motion, beautiful, and just like slime down over it. And then we time remapped it, and it kind of went all the way. And it's like the reputation of, the sin that we allow into our hearts as Christians.
That's good.
It covers up the church and the message of the church. But what God does is he washes that away. So that was a really fun one. It was really relatively simple, but it was a great solution. We even used it for some lyric video backgrounds and stuff.
Cool.
I think Momentum was another really fun project that we got to do. It was a parenting series. And so Alex had this illustration of like your child is a rocket. So you've got to set them up well. You've got to make sure that their pre-flight checklist is ready, and then they're going to fly and they're going to drop, different stages of the rocket. So we're like, okay, well, what can we do that's fun? Because that sounds super boring. And so we cast this kid when we wrote this short little story about a kid that's, wants to play with the spaceship and then ends up playing alone, and the dad comes out. It's super sweet. But it warmed up people's hearts like, oh yeah, like this is what parenting is about.
Yeah.
And so it prepared them to hear, the message from Alex, and I think it was a huge win.
Yeah, that's great. And can people still go back and watch some of those
Yeah,
videos?
so I would definitely subscribe on YouTube if you're not already. But you can go back and watch old messages and even the podcast. We have this podcast, but if you've missed old sermon series, go listen to them if you can't watch them.
We'll have Seth drop some links in the show notes here. You can go and check out those things. I mean, I think about some of the things that have been impactful for me. Easter, my first Easter here, there was a video. And I think that the video was entitled "Better Stuff."
Stronger stuff.
Yes. That's it. And it's just the story of this man. He's telling when he was a kid, he accidentally got into his dad's oil of his car, and he was trying to wipe it off. But every time he tried to wipe it off, it would smear. Yeah. And his dad came in and was like, "You need stronger stuff." Yeah. And like that was our sin. And so for me, it was a great visual illustration of like we can't get it off, but God has stronger stuff. And so been very, very impactful. There's been a lot of those things. And so if you've got a memory of something that the creative team did, would you drop it in the comments below?
Let us know.
Or let us know. And just so that can be a great encouragement to the team to know that, hey, that one thing, for me as a campus pastor, the ease of the Connect card and how it can get to me through the interwebs of IT and tech and the website into my email address is pretty fantastic. So that's been super helpful for things like that. So, man, that's awesome. I think about our corporate worship every week.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of place does creativity and art have in that environment?
Yeah, I think it's different for different people, but I'd say as long as it's just not distracting, like there's a lot of different avenues where worship can be expressed. And we've done some creative things here where we've had live painting, during the worship, and then we use it as an illustration during the service. I think even just our lyric videos and our lighting, like anything that can create an atmosphere where you're so immersed in the presence of God and what you're thinking through and seeing and processing, that's what art does. It speaks to your soul. Yeah. And so any way that we can use something out of the box to help people connect, like that's a win. And so, and maybe that's not on a Sunday. Maybe that's, maybe it's listen to, a podcast or being able to re-listen to the message or something during the week, driving down the back road somewhere. Like, I think the art is always subjective, but the message is not. Yeah. And so whatever avenue it takes to get it to you, we want to try all the avenues.
Yeah. That's good. What about private worship? Like, how would you encourage a listener who wants to involve art and creativity into their private worship? Like, what can that look like?
Yeah, I think it can look, for me, it was practically, it was a hobby that I thought, I can help the church with this. I'm artistic. I work at an agency. But anybody has an iPhone. Like, if you want to be creative, like take some pictures at your campus and tag us on Instagram. Like, we'll probably reshare them. We'll use them. If you're a painter, like just do what inspires you and share it with a Bible verse or something. Like, I think people, myself included, never expected for art to line up with the church or using it for the gospel. But it can, and it's very, very easy. There's lots of different ways. So whatever God has given you, or you see that you want to be part of, like, just start doing it. Yeah. Like, don't wait on, like, this is your invitation. Hey, start whatever you want to do, start doing it.
Yeah. And we want to invite you as a listener to maybe follow some people that can inspire you. Who are some people that you follow that you can encourage them to check out?
A local guy, Timmy Dwyer. Well, I think he's moved recently, but he does a lot of motion graphics. He's a lot of the inspiration. I love motion design. He does a lot of just weekly, like, he'll animate Jesus Loves You in like 6 different ways. It's like, oh man, that's really cool. I can know how he does that one. I don't know how he does that one, but he's always doing something with an encouraging message. Sure. Looks cool, challenging to me, both like, oh yeah, Jesus loves me. One, also I got to figure out how he did that. So practically I'm trying to figure it out. I think for me, another one, Creative Church, CRTV, Nick Goodner started that a couple years ago, several years ago. They get to highlight, they don't do as much highlighting of church stuff, but kind of church creative culture and making sure you're staying healthy, making sure you're focusing on the main thing and not just getting bogged down in all the to-do lists and stuff. I think another one that's, if you're wanting someone to kind of challenge you're thinking Scott the Painter. That's his Instagram handle.
He's good.
He did an Advent series that was really good. He did like a realistic Christmas and, of like the birth of Christ. And he has a very specific like style, like it's a white background, like an outline with some gold fill. And some of his stuff is challenging, like if you think about it, but it's always, he knows what he stands for. And so he wants you to think about, hey, what do you stand for? What do you believe?
Yeah.
And he does it with art to challenge you into your own thinking. And I don't agree with everything like maybe theologically, but I love his attitude towards it and how he uses what God's given him to like get people thinking. And at the end of the day, no one's always going to agree with me.
Yeah.
And that's not why I'm here. But if I can help people think and, make a connection more with God, then that's a win. At BattleCreek Church.
Oh,
that was a good one.
Check that out.
Yeah.
A lot of good content and content creators
yes.
that post on there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, some pretty talented people. I think another one for me is looking outside of churches. So I think, Adidas always has something great. Dribble and Behance, those are design communities that are already established and they highlight artists. And so I see that, oh, that's really good. And I follow them on their new page. And so I have all these different people of different styles that I'm following across the world. And that motivates me to be a better church designer, a church creative director. And I see stuff that this is the stuff the world, sees and wants to see. And it's competing with the attention. It's like, yeah, we can do this and we can do it better. It's inspiring to like see what's working and know that our team can do that and do that better and do it with Jesus as the reason.
Come on. Listen, art is meant to inspire, and to challenge and to get you to think, and art shapes you. And so for us just to be mindful of the kind of art we're putting into us intentionally, maybe some that's unintentional, and so just to be a good steward of the things that God wants us, because it trickles into our eyes and our ears, but it goes into our heart and our minds. And so art can have a strong place in your home. We all have art in some capacity in there, but also the things that you consume on a regular basis as a part of that, whether it be shorts or animations or shows or movies or whatever. But those are good places to start. I appreciate you sharing on that. What's on the horizon for the creative team here at the church?
So we're about to go into summer. We've got the Giant series, then we have summer. With summer, there's camps. There's a bunch of events we're about to kick off. In the fall, we relaunch groups again. So there's a lot of excitement of getting back into what we would perceive as like the normal rhythm of the church. During COVID and quarantine, there's a lot that we couldn't do, and we were trying. I feel like we solved a lot of problems as well of doing stuff online and remotely. But there's something about like, hey, we're gonna get to have groups kick off in August together. We're going to have a dream team rally together. How do we make that special for people? So there's a lot of big things coming up that I'm excited about.
It's awesome. We look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. Hopefully y'all like it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Andrew, before I let you get out of here, lightning round questions. I'm going to give you two options. You choose the one that's your favorite, okay? Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Netflix or YouTube?
YouTube.
Stranded on a ski lift or an elevator?
An elevator has a hatch, so in theory I could get out.
Okay, there you go. What's worse, laundry or dishes?
Laundry.
Would you rather explore space or the ocean?
Ooh, space.
Ebook or paper book?
Paper book.
What's comfort food for you?
Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and a roll.
I was going to guess Slim Chickens.
Slim Chickens, yes.
Slim Chickens. Maybe a redundancy, but what is your last meal on earth?
Oh, something my mom made.
Great answer. Shout out to Andrew's mom.
Yes.
Good cook. All right, last question. You're on a deserted island. Food and water are provided.
Okay.
What else would you bring?
My wife.
That's a fantastic answer. I set you up for success for that one. So, man, listen, I just want to
She might not want to be stranded there. She might just say, like, bring your car so you can come back home.
Somebody said boat. Get me back home. Yeah. Listen, I'm so thankful and hearing your journey that God brought you to BattleCreek Church. And I'm so thankful to, as an outsider before coming here, watch the journey of growth, of excellence, and to see the team you guys have here, the excellent content providers, and what we're doing, not just here in Tulsa, but how we're reaching America and the world because of the stuff that you guys get to do. It's a great partnership ministry, and it's one that's unheralded. And I feel like for you guys, just from behalf of a campus pastor, like, you guys are crushing it, and I couldn't be more proud of what you guys are putting out, and look forward to all the stuff coming up in the future. So
we have a great team, and I'll pass that
pass that feedback along. We're glad you and Alyssa are here. Thanks for being a part of BattleCreek Church, and look forward to what God's gonna do through you in the future. Thank you so much for listening to Beyond Battle Creek. This show is produced by BattleCreek Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. To keep up with everything going on in the church, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you enjoy this show, be sure to share it. We'll see you next episode.